Pack your things. You're done here. The boss's voice cut through the lobby like a blade. His finger pointed at the black security guard in front of a crowd. Laughter followed. Eyes rolled. To them, he was nothing but a man in a cheap uniform, standing where he didn't belong. But what they didn't know, what not even the arrogant boss realized, was that in just minutes, the tables would turn. Tell us in comments, have you ever been judged by someone who had no idea who you really were? Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was another long evening for Marcus, the night security guard. Most people walked past him without even a glance, treating him like part of the furniture. He didn't mind. It was a quiet job, and he liked the rhythm of it. He knew every corner of the building, every creak of the elevator, every echo in the marble lobby. For years, he stood watch as the world rushed in and out of those glass doors, unnoticed, unbothered, and often underestimated. Marcus carried himself with quiet dignity. He wore the same pressed uniform each night, polished his shoes until they shone, and greeted tenants with a nod or a calm smile. But behind that calm face was a man with stories, struggles, triumphs, and secrets no one cared to ask about. They only saw the uniform. To them, he was just the guard. The building itself was a tower of wealth and pride, filled with high-end offices, law firms, and luxury apartments. It wasn't unusual for men in suits to look down on Marcus, whispering as they passed, barely disguising their disdain. He got used to it, but every so often a sneer or careless insult still stung. Yet he kept showing up, night after night, standing tall in silence. What no one realized was that Marcus wasn't just guarding the building, he owned it. Years of hard work, quiet investments, and smart decisions had made him the silent force behind the very empire they walked through each day. But he never flaunted it. He didn't need to. Still, fate had a way of pushing people to the edge. And one ordinary night, when arrogance met ignorance, Marcus's patience would finally be tested. The boss would step too far. If you were Marcus, knowing the truth about who you are while the world only sees the uniform, what would you do? The night began like any other. Marcus stood at his post, scanning the marble lobby as employees trickled out. But this time, the new regional boss stormed in. Loud and brash, his eyes fixed on Marcus with a glare sharp enough to cut. He barked orders about image and standards, his voice echoing off the polished walls. To him, Marcus wasn't a man, just an obstacle, someone standing in the way of how he wanted the building to look. He sneered at Marcus's uniform, mocked the way he stood, and accused him of slacking in front of tenants. It didn't matter that Marcus had never once missed a shift, never once failed in his duty. In that moment, he was treated like dirt. The humiliation didn't stop there. The boss made a show of it, raising his voice so everyone in the lobby could hear. A few tenants paused, watching, smirking, whispering. The air grew heavier, thicker, as Marcus stood frozen, every insult pounding against his chest. He wanted to defend himself, but he knew how men like this operated. No matter what he said, it would be twisted. His silence became their entertainment. Then came the order. "You're fired. Right here, right now." The boss pointed to the door, as if Marcus were nothing more than trash to be thrown out. Gasps rippled through the crowd. One woman shook her head, while others pulled out their phones, eager to record the scene. Marcus felt the sting of injustice burn through him. He had endured years of being overlooked, but never had he been stripped of dignity so publicly. His mind raced. Should he walk out quietly as if their judgment was true? Or should he stand his ground knowing the truth that none of them could see? The boss smirked, certain he had won. Certain he had crushed the guard in front of everyone. But what he didn't know was that the very ground he stood on, the glass, the marble, the glowing lights, belonged to the man he had just tried to break. The tension in the lobby was electric, ready to snap. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same again. Would you keep silent and walk away? Or would you reveal who you really are in that moment? The lobby went silent. Marcus didn't move, didn't speak. He simply let the boss's words hang in the air like poison. Every eye was on him, waiting to see if the guard would shuffle away in shame. But Marcus wasn't a man easily broken. Inside, his chest burned with years of swallowed humiliation. He thought of every time he'd been overlooked, every sideways glance, every muttered insult. And now, in front of a laughing crowd, it all came to a head. The boss crossed his arms, lips curling with arrogance. He strutted toward the front desk, slamming his hand on the counter as if to seal Marcus's fate. "I said you're finished here. Get out before I call the police." His words dripped with venom, each syllable meant to crush. But then, Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket. The crowd shifted uneasily, whispers rising. Phones were still recording. The boss laughed, mistaking the movement for desperation. Marcus pulled out a key card. Not the kind of key a guard carried, but the MasterCard. The one that unlocked every floor, every office, every private suite in the towering building. Gasps rippled as he placed it on the counter with deliberate calm. Then, with steady hands, he produced another item, a thick leather folder embossed with the company seal. He opened it just enough for the tenants nearby to see. Inside was the deed, the official ownership papers. His name, clear, undeniable, impossible to ignore, stamped in bold letters. The boss's smirk faltered. His face drained of color. He stepped back, words caught in his throat. The laughter in the lobby died instantly, replaced by stunned silence. Tenants leaned forward, wide-eyed, some even covering their mouths in disbelief. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm but edged with steel. He didn't need to shout. "You don't fire me," he said. "I own this place." The weight of the truth dropped like a hammer. The boss staggered, humiliated in front of the very people he had tried to impress. For once, the power was gone from his voice. For once, he was the one reduced to silence. Tell me this. If you were standing there watching a man everyone dismissed reveal that he was the true owner all along, what would you be thinking happens next? The silence that followed was deafening. The boss, once so loud and sure of himself, now stood frozen, his arrogance crumbling in front of dozens of witnesses. The same people who had smirked and whispered only moments before now stared at Marcus with wide eyes, their faces flushed with shock and shame. Phones that had been recording for mockery were now documenting justice. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice or demand an apology. He simply stood tall, letting the truth speak louder than anything he could say. The humiliation belonged to the boss now, not him. And in that quiet, the balance of power shifted. Security staff, once uncertain, straightened with pride. Tenants who had ignored Marcus for years suddenly looked at him with a respect they should have shown long ago. The boss, red-faced and trembling, stammered for words but found none. He had been exposed, not just as arrogant, but as blind. Marcus picked up the deed, slid the key card back into his pocket, and turned away from the man who had tried to strip him of dignity. The message was clear. Ownership isn't always written on your clothes. That night, word spread like fire. Tenants whispered about it in elevators. Videos of the confrontation flooded social media, and the city buzzed with the story of the security guard who was really the owner. To many, Marcus became a symbol, a reminder that worth isn't defined by uniforms or assumptions, but by truth and resilience. But beyond the headlines, beyond the viral moment, the story left a deeper question hanging in the air. How many people are being dismissed every single day? Not because of who they are, but because of the color of their skin or the job they hold? And maybe the hardest question of all, how many times have we been guilty of looking at someone and assuming they were less? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.